In my office, culture was central to me. I think if you could create an environment where people woke up looking forward to the day, feeling well supervised, well supported, valued, well trained. Remuneration was important, but it wasn't key, and it was the whole environment, I think. That was important, and then they told their friends, and then their friends contacted you and wanted to join. So we started off just with me and a secretary and another person, and I was senior partner there for 24 years. At the end, we had 185 people. So we had a really exciting time. But for quite a long time, my office was the smallest of 8 offices to start off with. And we became the 3rd largest office in the end. It was difficult in the early stages, growing. And I can remember our finance director saying, once you get to 20 people, then things will just start to mushroom. And sure enough, they did. But getting to 20 people wasn't easy, but as soon as we did, then we had a really exciting time.
Hello, this is the Stronger Business Together podcast, where business owners learn from each other. No theory, no gurus, just real journeys and overcoming real hurdles. Today, I'm joined by Chris Wiggin, who is a retired solicitor who has built a business and now helps other businesses through a portfolio of non-exec directing. So, Chris, welcome.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here, Granger.
Fantastic. Well, let's start with Act 1 about your business. So let's talk about the business that you grew and developed, the solicitor's business. So Chris, in plain English, what did the business do?
It was a firm of solicitors. I suppose my history is when we first married, I moved to a small little country practice from a London firm where I was working, and the practice was a 2-partner firm in Stroud, and they were going to open an office in Dursley, and they asked me to open it for them. They split up after 6 months, and I bought it and became a sole practitioner at the age of 32 with just me and a secretary. And it was quite daunting, but quite an exciting time. And I'm pleased to say that we grew, and I managed to acquire 1 assistant. But being very small, I mean, every outlay affected your profit margin. So as I got quite busy, I then was asked actually by the other 3 firms. They all asked me if I'd like to join them. And I joined one of them and became a partner there. And then a friend who I used to play cricket and rugby with at the firm in London where I started off asked me if I'd like to open an office for them in Birmingham. I came from just north of Birmingham, and I opened an office previously, so that's what I did. And we moved to Cheltenham, and I commuted up on the train for over 30 years, and we started off just with me and a secretary and another person, and I was senior partner there for 24 years. And at the end, we had 185 people. So we had a really exciting time. But for quite a long time, my office was the runt of the litter. It was the smallest of 8 offices to start off with. And we became the 3rd largest office in the end. But it was difficult in the early stages, growing. And I can remember our finance director saying, once you get to 20 people, then things will just start to mushroom. And sure enough, they did. But getting to 20 people wasn't easy. But as soon as we did, then we had a really exciting time.
Excellent. Well done. That's fantastic. I mean, that's quite a growth over those years. So, I always like to know, why did your customers then pick you? How did you delight them?
Well, to start off with, we acted for insurance companies representing their insured. When we first moved to Birmingham, a head office of an insurance company suggested that we should open in Birmingham and that they would instruct us. But when I went to knock on the claims manager's door, he gave me a response I wasn't expecting. And he said, well, I don't know you. Why should I instruct you? Because I've been using another firm for the past 20 years, and we have a great working relationship. I couldn't challenge that. So we had to go on knocking on other people's doors and putting ourselves around, joining a lot of networking events, to get known. And sure enough, in time, we started to gain new business. And it was all to do with networking, meeting people. I used to play golf with a partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I used to take a client, and he used to take a client, and we used to swap them. And from time to time, we got quite a good network of joint friends and contacts.
Yeah.
It took time, and it wasn't what I expected to start off with.
Yeah. So it's building that network over time eventually led to the growth that you then created and built. So tell me, give us an example of a customer success story that you're really proud of at that time.
Well, fraud was a big factor in the insurance industry in those days, and the insurance companies were losing a huge amount of money due to fraudulent claims. In those days, most firms of solicitors didn't have a dedicated, specific fraud department. That started to happen, and that became my biggest department in my office. I recruited somebody from another firm who was an excellent fraud specialist, and it became by far the largest department in my office. We were able to save our clients, hundreds of thousands of pounds, which was very exciting. And other areas of specialisms evolved really, and it was due to recruiting the right people. In my office, culture was central to me. I think if you could create an environment where people woke up looking forward to the day, feeling well supervised, well supported, valued, well trained, and remuneration was important, but it wasn't key. And it was the whole environment, I think. That was important. And then they told their friends, and then their friends contacted you and wanted to join. We had a very exciting growth period with fraud and sort of in the middle part of the journey of the office.
Excellent. And I love that description that you had of, people don't necessarily, they don't come for money. They need the money, but actually they stay for the environment you create. And I love that description you did on that. So brilliant. Let's talk about Act 2 now, the journey, what you learned through building that sort of business up there in Birmingham. So, there are always highs and lows as you're trying to build and grow and develop. What were some of the highs and lows for you during that time?
I think we didn't have any training, didn't have any management training, and you learn by your mistakes or from other people. I think having a structure was really helpful. When I had right at the very beginning, it was just me and another person and a secretary. We sat next to each other. We didn't have any formal meetings because we knew what each of us were doing and could hear what each of us were doing. But as soon as we started to have regular monthly structured formal meetings, things changed, and it changed for the better. So that was something that I learned. And then I think there were one or two different things that I did, which we had, as we grew, we had monthly partners meetings, of course, but at one stage we were on 3 different floors, and you often didn't know or meet from day or week to week people on the other floor. So I arranged for the heads of department and the partners to meet every Friday for an informal sandwich lunchtime, if they could. And that helped greatly, getting to know the individual, their quirks. You don't get on with everyone, but by just meeting and not having any formal structure and just having a chat, you get a greater camaraderie, you get a greater sense of pulling together rather than having your own fiefdoms, and you get to understand people's issues. Maybe they've got, people at home with cancer or, bereavement or things like that. So that was very helpful.
Yeah, I think it's so important for people that work together to somehow come together. Now, we sometimes think you did it physically fantastic by creating a lunchtime sandwich. In my past, I had team members in a team that were in India, were in Gateshead, and were in Manchester. So I got them all every single day to have 2 coffee moments where they all went online. We were using WebEx back then,
That's
and
great.
everybody sat and had their coffee together. Yes, face to face, looking at a video screen, but they built that little bit of understanding of each other greater than that you get than just having formal meetings. And eventually I encouraged them even to work together by leaving their screens running and their videos running. So even though they were working, they were still feeling part of a team, and that massively improved the whole camaraderie and also the output of it. So I totally agree. People need that connection when they are all part of the same thing for growing a business. Fantastic. So, I believe in making life simpler for yourselves. What's maybe something that you stopped doing and that made things simpler for the firm?
We were told at one stage that we couldn't recruit people who had less than a 2-1 degree. And I felt strongly that I didn't agree with that. I didn't get a 2-1 degree. I got a 2-2 degree. It's the character of the individual, their personality, their values, their initiative, their drive, which is so important. So I didn't do it. And that's something that I felt quite strongly about. And I think that if you get the right people in a business, that's the core. And if you're all pulling together, but it's not always easy. And
No.
and it's the people really that will get your customers and your clients. If they trust you, and if they like your company and they believe in you, they like working with you, they'll be forgiving. We all make mistakes from time to time. We don't do it intentionally. It happens quite often. But if you get the right people with the right attitude and foster that in different ways, then in my opinion, it's really helpful. I got an idea from the senior partner of then Rag & Co, and he used to send a card to each a member of staff on the anniversary of them joining the firm. And I used to do that. And I got a lot of brownie points, and I just sent a small personal note to them, and it made a difference to the culture of the office. And I think people felt valued, thanking them for, what they've done and congratulating them on their 3rd or 5th year there or whatever. And it's the little things, but people are crucial, and it's developing, I think, the ways in which you train them, you look after them, you supervise them, and you monitor them, having one-on-one meetings regularly to learn not all, about necessarily all their work, but about them as people as well, and other issues which they might have, and they'll learn about issues which you have too.
Oh, that was a real goldmine in that statement you just made. That is so true about people. And we, at Stronger Business Together, we believe in growing people, so they then help grow your business. And when we're looking at those small businesses and that growth, so you've talked a lot about people and how you think. So what have you learned about developing and growing people that maybe you'd wished you'd learned earlier for our audience to say, I need to start doing this?
It goes back to what I said, structure, I think. I think if you, and communication, if as a business grows, communication can be a real sticking point. So communication, in my opinion, is key, and it's not easy to do. So I used to have quarterly, one-on-one meetings with every month by the supervisors as we grew, with everyone, with every individual. And then I used to have quarterly meetings for the whole of the office. It's difficult, but we could all squeeze into one huge room. And then the heads of each department used to stand up and just give an update as to what had been happening in their world, some good things, maybe some things that hadn't gone too well, so that everybody felt advised and updated. and part of the business. For a long time, we didn't do that. But as soon as people were regularly communicated with in that way, it made a big difference.
Yeah, fantastic. I totally agree. And interesting, I always think about communication is we as the business owners, we have so much in our heads. We know what's going on. We know all the strings that we're pulling. We know what's going on in the marketplace. We know
Exactly.
so much. And we don't understand why people around us don't know it. And you think, well, actually, because you don't tell them. Because they're in the business, you assume they'd somehow osmosisly, come together and understand these things. As humans, we've developed language in order to communicate ideas, to communicate where we are, communicate what we're doing. So, as you say, communication is so important to bring everybody up. And there's a formal communication that you talked about. There's also the little informal ones, little things that are taking place, little pleases and thank yous, all that structure taking on. Brilliant. Fantastic. So, Chris, let's move on now to our hurdle round. So what is it you've chosen today for us to talk through?
Well, I'm currently a non-exec of one or two businesses. An outsourcing business, which I love. I love the people. A cyber company in Birmingham, and a company called MediMusic that provides music as medicine. And I'm helping a company in Australia who've got an online life skills modular training program. One or two other small businesses. One company is and has struggled for some time to get additional finance. They've got a good investment initially, but in order to finish off the technology and the product before it can be sold, the investor has said, "We'll support you, but we don't want to be the only investor." And it's been really difficult to find another investor. And I think this product has got a global reach. And that's been really difficult. And when I'm speaking to other people, I think particularly for startups, getting investment, certainly in the technology sort of sector is a common problem. And that's one that we've had.
Okay, so this is a tech type company. It's using software. Has it got as its starting condition today? So let's talk about that, where it is today. Has it got a product that it's actually actively selling to generate revenue? Okay.
No.
Right. Okay. So the investment is pre-revenue generation. So it's just based on the belief the owner, fantastic, we all need those people, have that it will be a worthwhile product in the marketplace. Okay, so that's our starting condition. So where we are currently, they have some initial investment, and the investors, you're saying, was willing to give more, but only if there's a second investor on board. So that first investor, why did they invest?
I think they invested because they could see the benefit of the product and the potential. It was a substantial investment too, but it hasn't been sufficient to finish all the trials that are needed for the technology before the product can be sold.
Okay, so the original pitch deck, the original idea that they invested in, did it originally then also needed further investment pre-launch, or did the original investment was going to be sufficient to do those trials and those activities?
I'm not too sure, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
I think it was hoped that initial investment would be sufficient to launch the product, but it hasn't launched yet. It's a huge amount of development has taken place recently due to the just hard work personally in doing that and other things himself. But it's been a struggle, and talking to other people involved in technology and technology startups, it's a risk, for people to invest, and some fly, but so many startups don't fly.
Yes. So what often investors are investing? They're investing in the belief, the passion, and the motivation of the founder. and the small group around them. It's the energy that they bring to the belief, the structure that'll take place. Now, the most important thing for any business, especially technology ones, is that initial investment to build something that can then, even if it's just proof of concept, we can actually get into the marketplace to actually sell something and see if the marketplace is genuinely there. Have we got to a point yet of anything that we could actually take to market and start experimenting with, even if that was free? Because at least you're getting feedback and understanding from people as we're testing those ideas and those solutions in place.
We're just on the verge of doing that. We've got someone who says they would love to introduce us to their customers, and who are substantial, and to have a collaboration, which is really exciting. But it's taken 18 months plus to get to that stage, and it's
absolutely
been a difficult journey.
And we talk about the shape of businesses. I love that phrase. I learned that one from Alex Hormozy, and he talks about the different shapes. And product business, as in, physical product, consumer, is a staircase. Yeah, because the only way to grow is you need that next level of money to buy the next product, put it on the shelf to be able to expand and to grow. So there are times where you just don't seem to grow and you can't seem to do any more. And that's actually because you just need that next amount of money to do that. And that's either investment or through bootstrapping. So it is difficult. The next one is that education one. The education is a curve that goes up and then goes flat, because there's only so many people that will want your product and capability from it, and actually you won't go beyond a certain level of it. You've got the line just steadily going up, which is those service industries, because the only way that you grow is you need to invest more people. You need to bring people into the business. So they have to keep you become a training and recruiting process to make those those typical service type industries. And then you have the technology companies, and the technology companies is that inverted curve. You start off really low, and then you take a while, and then it suddenly takes off and then grows. And it's that period of time before it grows that you need that money to be able to do that. And you're either doing that yourself through bootstrapping, or you're doing that yourself through investment. But through that period, the most important thing is not the technology, it's how do we sell the technology we should be experimenting with. Because we can get hung up in the perfect solution. We can get hung up in the perfect software, the perfect outcome that we're looking for. But during that time, what you're really experimenting is, how do we sell it? Who's the right people? Will they buy it? Even if they're going to buy it for free initially, those early adopters. So you've got to find those early adopters, those early majority. You've got to constantly focus on doing those. So as a business, where's the effort today in finding those first people to buy, or those, even if you started selling? Well, you haven't said that yet, but you're trying to do.
That's brilliant, because that's key. And I think one thing that we've been able to do with this business is with this other company that I mentioned, we've got an agreement, a written agreement from them that once the product is in its final form, they're happy to collaborate with us. So that's a comfort to the investor, and what we need is more of those.
Yes,
and
it's
maybe
hard
we should have been making for better efforts to get more of those. Really,
absolutely, and it's hard because. I don't know how many people are in the firm currently, but you've got the technology person, the founder, running the tests, building the software. Okay, but you need the second person. That's why most businesses are beautiful growth. When you've got two people, you've got the salesperson and you've got the original idea person. And it's bringing that sales forwards, practicing that, going through those hurdles, because there'll be lots of no's before you get to the yeses. But if you're not getting those lots of no's, you're not learning how to sell. And even putting the product in front of pre-purchasing people, saying, this is what we're looking like, getting their feedback and understanding, and how's that going to work, and going through those hurdles as you're developing the technology. And even if you can get to that zero product level where you could actually sell it in some form with more to come, absolutely. But getting that first initial feedback and trials is so important, because a business isn't about the product. That's the original idea. That's the spark. A business is about how you sell that product. And that's why I work a lot of my clients with, to really think about their selling process, their experience of selling, what works, what doesn't, trying different marketplaces, seeing what, in those early years, who's actually going to buy or not. One of my clients, he spent probably 2 years playing around, didn't sound much, but lots of different marketplaces. And suddenly he found the one that really worked. He found the way to talk to them, the way to do it. And his business is just accelerating in the last 18 months. At the end of this year, he's going to have 6 staff. That's the level of growth that he's doing. But it took him nearly 2 years to play around and do that. And that's probably what your next investor is looking for. They're looking
That's
for
so
that
true.
proof.
You hit the nail on the head there, Granger. Yeah. Well done. Yeah.
They're looking for that proof that you can actually sell it, even if it's for free. Yeah, because you can actually say, look, it's pre-selling. We're giving this away for free, but people are using it. They're getting feedback. You're getting testimonials. That you can then do that, and then you can go to more investors, because there are investors that are pre-launch, absolutely. But they're hard to find because it's all about belief. If you're post-launch and you're generating revenue and you're generating growth, then actually you'll find a totally different type of investors that will then come in and help to make that accelerate.
No, spot on. Yeah. And that's applicable to another company that I'm involved in, the training company that I mentioned. And they've struggled to sell. I think that letting people have it for free to see for themselves the value and the benefit of the product.
There's a brilliant book. Again, there's a book by Alex Hormozy, $100 million Leads. What he talks about the first 5 people effectively give it away for free. But they're people that so you trust them to give you feedback, you trust them to give you testimonials, you trust them to help you develop the product. That's why you're giving it free. The next 5 people, you say, you can have it for free, but you've got to give X amount to charity. So at least they're paying for it, but maybe not paying you yet because you're still finishing off. Once you've got to those first 10 people, you've had 10 people's worth of feedback. Okay, that might be 10 businesses rather than people. You've had those 10 feedback. Once you've got that feedback, you've now got a product that roughly who will go. To get 10 people, you may have spoken to 50 people that you know personally.
And that feedback as testimonials.
Absolutely.
If people agree.
Yes. And then you can then find the next 10 people which you're going to try and sell to. So now you've got 20 people that you've got that feedback, who you're roughly starting to sell to, and then you can start growing off the back of that. But we often think that we've got to try and sell the first 5 to 10. We don't. It'd be nice to, fantastic. That's what that initial investment in a business helps us find and do. So that's a really important step, maybe that we're missing in that thinking and that structure. Brilliant. So, Chris, what do you think? When you're going to sit down with the business owner in the next week, what do you think your first experiment was going to be?
We're just coming out of the long period of frustration and not being able to finalize the product. And I think the product is now almost there. I think that the other company who promised that they would like to collaborate with us as a test. So it's been a long hurdle, but I'm just hopeful now that it will be able to launch very soon. The difficulty is having a product which is pre-launch and needs investment. And the founder has had to do so much work himself at night, having another job to finish it off, rather than having the luxury of being able to concentrate all his efforts and time full time on it. It's been a real struggle, but we're almost there now. But you're right. You need to sell it, get some testimonials, get other people to use it for free or otherwise to start off with.
Yeah.
But I'm hopeful that we're almost there with that. But it's an interesting journey, and I'm
It is.
thoroughly enjoying my involvements in the different variety of businesses, and it's exciting.
Great, great. Well, let's go into our wrap up and close now. What did you hear yourself say today that maybe surprised you?
Your insight into selling a new business idea was for free is something that I had wanted to embark on, but I think that's got legs, and I think it's important. A lot of founders, I think, would be reluctant to do that, but it's a struggle starting off. So that's one thing which I'm going to take away, and I can really see the logic in that.
Thank you, Chris. And finally, Chris, if people want to learn more about your journey and follow what you're doing, how can they get in contact with you?
LinkedIn, I'm loving having a portfolio of non-exec positions and really enjoying helping businesses with my experience and the journey that I've had. So if anybody would like to contact me, I'll be very pleased for them to reach out via LinkedIn or my mobile 077 68 485 299. Thank you very much.
Chris, thank you so much for being open and honest. And I know our listeners will get a lot from this conversation today. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
I really enjoyed it too. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for spending your time with us today. We're on a mission to make business owners stronger together. If this conversation helped you, please comment, like, and follow on whatever platform you're using. About 60% of you have not done that yet, and these small actions will help us reach more business owners just like you. If you want to join the conversation as a guest, or if you have a hurdle question for us to tackle, reach out to us at info@strongerbusinesstogether.com. Now, go make this week really successful, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.